Frank, I know you have some thoughts about the economic project, so let me turn it to you.
I do. I'm not sure I'd want to take Professor Tomasky's course, where he's a hard-ass grader. You know, Obama puts out this very aggressive agenda and can't score better than a B plus A minus.
Well, the public schools of West Virginia, you'd be surprised.
No, that's good. That's good. It's part of the virtues of citizenship that we're trying to restore. You can't reach perfection straight off. I'm not really entirely sure what the economic project is in terms of the relationship that between the state and capitalism, and I'm not sure that it really exists. I thought that the speech that he gave yesterday about tax havens was a very important speech, and that there was a lot of what both Mike and Mark were talking about, that he was demanding that our corporations behave like citizens of the United States, that they pay taxes to the United States if they're going to locate here and enjoy their profits in this country. And I think that was maybe the most aggressive that I've seen him be in deploying a kind of populism and making the kind of demand for citizenship out of the business community. But on the whole, I don't think that he set out to remake capitalism. The fundamental fact of his administration is that there is a crisis in the economic order, and I'm not sure that he's got a terribly clear sense of what caused the crisis, and a terribly clear sense about what the order that will emerge from the crisis will look like. And that's not to fault him in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that there are very many economists who have a clear sense of that. And if you don't have a clear sense of what caused the crisis, and you're kind of essentially trying to muddle through it, I don't think you should be necessarily articulating a grand vision for the order that should emerge. But I do think that what's emerged in the course of the first 100-some days is a sensibility about the role of the state and the role of the market. And it's most evident in the way that he's responded to the financial crisis, but I think it's also, you could trace it through the entirety of his domestic agenda. And I think after 100-some days, he's done enough stuff for us to pause and ask the question, what does it add up to? And is it liberal? Is it moderate? Is it new Democrat? Is it old Democrat? And I think what's interesting about the agenda that he's put forward is all the ways in which it's kind of shattered a lot of the old templates that we're so familiar with. On the one hand, I think that it's preserved. There is clearly it's ambitious, and clearly he cares about inequality and there's and social justice, and that's there, the traditional liberal concerns. But I think when it comes to his technique, one of the interesting things is that there's a lot of the new democratic sensibility there as well, and that he's created some sort of synthesis of the two. But what I mean is that I think that there is, even though he believes in big government and believes that government should be activist and should be trying to solve the great challenges of our day, from healthcare reform to fixing the educational system, et cetera, he doesn't want the government to leave a terribly big footprint in the economy. And he's not trying to remake the country into Europe for better or for worse. He's not designing a healthcare system that is comparable to a European healthcare system. And when you look at his response to the banking crisis, it's striking how different it is from the Swedish solution to the banking crisis. That, I think that on paper there's a lot of reasons to think that nationalization may be the elegant right solution, but Obama has decided that it simply runs against the American grain, and that you need to try to accomplish all the goals of nationalization. You need to have government actively managing the economy, trying to prevent further systemic failure without going the full Swedish Monty. And the big question going forward is, will it work? In a lot of his proposals, I think Rube Goldberg like if you look at them on paper. And I mean this with respect, and I don't see alternatives to a lot of the proposals. You know, you look at the banking solution and the housing solutions that he's put forward. They involve government trying to create lots of incentives for the private sector to remobilize itself, to reposition itself, and they involve a lot of heroic assumptions about how government can change the behavior of financial institutions and of consumers by inserting incentives into the market and trying to create new markets and trying to redirect competition. But it doesn't involve government having an especially heavy-handed role in remaking the economy, remaking the nature of American capitalism. And I totally understand why he's taking this approach, because to go for a bigger government solution, to go for a more European solution, whatever you want to call it, would require creating an agenda that would be, I think, slightly, well, more than slightly difficult to sell to the American people. So what he's done, I think, is create the most palatable form of an activist government that you can build a consensus around in a very short period of time. And he's also left his options open. So you could take this approach to fixing the banks or fixing the housing situation or fixing the healthcare reform crisis. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, you can always go to the next strongest medicine on the shelf and try that out. And I think because of his political style and because of the political dynamic that would emerge from this, I think he would have the space to go in that direction if need be. And also, I think that a lot of his, you know, like I said, I find the nationalization idea very appealing on paper and very intellectually appealing, but he's got not just objections to it that are based on salesmanship. I think a lot of his objections are based on actual fears about having government run large financial institutions, that he's worried that our government is simply not equipped to do that, and that our political system, more to the point, isn't equipped to do that, because politics will end up, these institutions will end up becoming politicized, and government won't manage these institutions in order to get the best results for the country. They'll be forced to get the results, best results for the junior senator from Kentucky or something like that, or they would have to respond to pressure from various interest groups, and everything would get all messed up. But I think that there's, you know, muddling through a crisis is not necessarily the worst solution to a crisis. How much time do I have? I have 2 minutes. Okay. I think one other area we haven't talked about is foreign policy at all, and I think that a lot of what we've talked about applies to foreign policy as well. That tonally, he's come in and constructed an entirely new foreign policy. But in terms of substance, I think it remains to be seen about how much his foreign policy will deviate from not just the previous administration, but from kind of the establishment consensus foreign policy of the last couple of decades. And there are a lot of big tests, and in a lot of ways in which the equivalent to the financial crisis is probably what's happening in Pakistan right now, where the country is on the brink of becoming a failed state. There are no good, elegant solutions for solving the Talibanization, reversing the Talibanization of the country or containing the crisis. So he's got to come up with his equivalent to the banking plan for Pakistan, and I'm not sure that the government, I'm not sure that his administration really has begun to figure out exactly what they can do, because there are so few intuitive options for them to pursue. We've probably spoken too much, so why don't we